Thanks for staying with us this morning. We're in Topeka and we're at the Kansas Soybean Commission office here in Topeka. And we're joined by Kenlon Johannes, the Executive Director of the Kansas Soybean Commission. Kenlon, it's good to see you. It's always good to come by and spend some time with you guys. Checkoff's very important. And I know that you guys, as you help administer the checkoff, finding new and inventive ways to utilize soybeans is one of the parts of the checkoff. Aquaculture is one of those new. It's not necessarily new. It's been something that's been around, but you guys are really kind of getting into it. And it's a great new way for Kansas soybean farmers to utilize your product.
Well, and it makes sense too. I mean, the oceans are getting depleted, and we're not catching as many wild fish. And in fact, over 50% of what you would consider aquaculture, which would be shrimp and various species of fish, are now considered farm raised.
Right.
So when they're farm raised, you need to feed them something. They're not running around in the wild, and so the Kansas Soybean Commission has worked with U.S. Soybean Export Council and the Soy Aquaculture Alliance to start funding a fair amount of projects with aquaculture.
Yeah, well, and we talked about this the other day. Is probably 7 years ago, we went on a trip with you guys down to Mexico and looked at some tilapia farms and some other stuff like that. As fish continues to enjoy great popularity, it's a great opportunity for Kansas soy. It's just another outlet for soybean farmers.
Well, it has really grown since we've taken those trips early on, and it's built on the work that the Aquaculture Alliance and the U.S. Soybean Export Council have done. A lot of it is raised outside of the country, so that's why we use the U.S. Soybean Export Council as our expertise. What it involves is, and in fact, we've got a huge conference coming up in June with all the players, period, in aquaculture that the U.S. Soybean Export Council has put together, and the Kansas Soybean Commission is a major funder. And so by meaning all the players, it's finance, it's the feed producers, it's the people who raise the fish, it's people who buy the fish, it's people who insure it, just like farm insurance.
Sure.
I mean, it's anybody who's anything is going to be at that conference, and from all over the world.
Now, is it a secondary product that is created from, say, crush or something along those lines, or is it soybean meal?
Well, yeah, it's meal, but sometimes it's a high protein meal that needs to be fed to the fish. Some do it, some need it, some don't. So we've done a lot of studying too on different feeding trials, believe it or not, of fish and shrimp and the like, and that takes funds too. So we can position soybean meal as the preferred product to feed the fish. So.
It's just amazing. I mean, you guys continue to come up with new and inventive ways to use soybeans, and the byproduct of crush and all that other stuff. We've talked about turf and foam, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the prospective planting report for the state of Kansas coming up. You're watching Kansas AgReport. We'll see you in just a minute.
I will take action against herbicide-resistant weeds. I will know my weeds, and I will stop them before they go to seed. I will do whatever it takes to give my crops the upper hand, and I will use multiple herbicide sites of action because every action counts. I will take action, this time for all time.
This segment brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers. kansasAGreport.org. Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting our members' business interests to meet consumers' demands. KLA.org.
Thanks for staying with us. We're at the Kansas Soybean Commission office here in Topeka. We're joined by Kenlon Johannes, Executive Director. And in the first segment, we were talking about the way the checkoff works and some of the new aquaculture stuff that's going on. I got it right that time, so it's a tough word. Try saying it 3 times fast. Let's talk about prospective planting, and we were just kind of talking during the commercial break. It's a big number.
Well, we were kind of shocked ourselves with USDA's numbers. In fact, nationwide, corn and soybeans are about the same amount of acreage, which is unusual to begin with, because people like to plant corn, or farmers like to plant corn. But in Kansas, we took the biggest increase percentage-wise. They feel that we could have a 20% increase from 4 million acres last year to 5 million acres this year. So we're pretty excited about that. Even though it can affect prices, the price of soybeans has held fairly well. We've seen a little strength lately, and we think it might be continue to hold that, because the world needs protein, and soybean is protein, and the world needs oil, and a lot of it for cooking and food uses, and also for biodiesel. So we've kind of diversified the use of the bean with its meal and oil components, and so we're going to hang in there. We're going to try and continue to promote all the different uses that soybeans have, and hopefully we can keep those prices held up, even though we could have a very record year.
5 million acres, that is quite a jump. I mean, 1 million acres is a big jump. Again, I want to shift back to what the checkoff does, which is provide research for the best varieties for the state of Kansas. And your tie with Kansas State University, the agronomy department, is very important to Kansas soybean farmers.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because even though we do have a lot of soybeans on hand, we can't stop doing some basic research on the soybean itself. Herbicide resistance, different diseases, different pests, different types of fertilization techniques and the like. So we have not forgotten that. It's taken a bit of a back burner with the commissioners over this past year, but they're going to continue to work with K-State and K-State Extension to do that type of work.
A lot of it has to do with Mother Nature, and so far this spring, Mother Nature's been fairly kind to the state of Kansas. We do have some good topsoil moisture, so, but looking at drought resistance, and like you said, stuff that is extremely important to Kansas farmers, because from one side of the state to the other is completely different growing.
Well, yes, and in fact, we just discussed that at a conference call. K-State is partnering with Missouri, North Carolina, Georgia in a huge drought proposal that they're going to submit to the United Soybean Board. And then we're going to look and see if we could enhance that in some ways if it's funded by USB. So yes, when it's raining, it's good, but we have to be prepared in Kansas for the unusual weather that we can have.
Exactly. We want to remind everybody, kansassoybeans.com or .org, I'm sorry.
Yeah, kansassoybeans.org
is a website you can go and find all kinds of fun information. You can look for the meal planner and all that other stuff, working soy into your family's diet.
This Medford, New Jersey school bus runs on biodiesel, and so do these. In fact, all of these buses run on clean-burning biodiesel, which is great because the more we use biodiesel in our heavy-duty vehicles, the less carbon pollution in our air. Think how great it would be if more of our school buses ran on biodiesel. More biodiesel, less carbon pollution. More is less. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
Thanks for staying with us. We've spent the last week here at the Kansas Beef Council with Kevin.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. They're going to kick me out here in a minute. So we're finishing up May. This is the last weekend of May, and we're going to finish out Beef Month here with Kevin Thielin. Thanks for staying with us. Last week we talked just about the face of what beef looks like here in the state of Kansas, or beef production looks like here in the state of Kansas. Family owned, family operated, stewards of the land. We're going to go a little bit deeper. So let's talk about something that is extremely important to consumers. You know it is, producers know it is, BQA.
Yep. So BQA, and producers probably remember that it got its start from basically kind of the injection sites, carcass bruising and things of that nature. And that's still a very big focal point, but what we have seen is the industry has made dramatic improvements, and those aren't I'm going to use the word issues. Those really aren't issues for us this day and age. So the BQA program has really morphed into, animal handling, euthanasia, advice on antibiotics and all of those things. And so we've been very lucky because we have Dan Thompson, we have K-State that helps us with a lot of those BQA trainings. And we, at beginning of this year, January, February, and March, we did trainings all over the state of Kansas and ended up training about 700 producers. And so we've got a really strong base of producers here that go through that program. And for us then, if you flip that coin, we then share that with consumers that we reach out to. And that continuous improvement, or a farmer or rancher going through a program to be a better handler, that really resonates really well. And I think that's a powerful message, and BQA is going to continue to become more important, I think.
And I think one of the things that we forget about, or at least I forget about, I know you don't, is having BCI, 44 miles away, and the impact it has on the state, not only the state, but the U.S. just in general. But it's nice to have that in your backyard.
It is, yeah, yep.
So BQA, and some of you may understand what BQA is, and some of you may not know what BQA is, but it is basically gentle handling, maintaining your herd, in a humane way, I guess may be a good way to put it. Not that anybody would want to treat an animal poorly, but you get better results with the better you treat your animals, and I think most producers understand that. What is the takeaway that most of the producers get out of BQA?
I think when you go to those sessions and you just see that interaction, I think it's having that face-to-face time with a vet, the ability to answer questions of, hey, this is what we do, is it right? What would you recommend? Or honestly asking other producers. And so we typically hold these sessions at auction markets, and it's just a great environment to have, can just kind of have a discussion about animal handling and all the things that go with that.
Perfect. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the things going on here in the state of Kansas with the Kansas Beef Council. You're watching Kansas Ag Report, and we'll see you in just a minute.
This segment brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers. kansasAGreport.org. Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting our members' business interests to meet consumers' demands. KLA.org.
Imagine having someone help you pick the best corn hybrids for every field on your farm. Your Oldie representative can combine your data with his data to offer a field-by-field prescription. Contact Oldie Seed today at 877-692-4555.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
Thanks for staying with us. We're at the Kansas Beef Council, and we're joined by Kevin Thielin, the Executive Director, and we're finishing out, this is the last little bit of time we're going to spend together for May being Beef Month. And Kevin, it is a busy time of the year. People start dragging out their grills, so a lot of hamburgers being grilled, steaks and things like that. But getting out, touching consumers or talking to consumers, not only in person but on social media, is very important to you guys.
It is, and from a consumer standpoint, for us as producers, it's Beef Month. And there's history there. We really focus a lot on Burger Month or grilling, the start of grilling season, and that's what resonates with consumers. And we've seen tremendous growth in the last year on our social properties. I think a lot of the reason for that is we've hired a communications director, a guy by the name of Scott Stebner. And Scott has a master's in communications. in another life he is a professional photographer, so that lends itself really well to a lot of the things we're doing. But we're really we have basically 3 areas that we focus on. One is the culinary, so teaching people how to cook. So we do a lot of recipes and disseminate information that way. Second is on nutrition, talking about nutrition, and we have a team beef, if you will, that goes out and runs, and basically it's a great way to promote the health benefits of beef. Scott promotes that. And then that third piece that we really talk about a lot is just production and how beef is raised. And so some of the things that we've seen some success in, Brian, is Scott did a short little 1.5-minute video on controlled burning. Of course, that's a big part of the Flint Hills here in Kansas, and we saw over 300,000 people that watched that video. So tremendous reach of that, and we see that in a lot of the things that we do. It's a great way to get in front of consumers.
Yeah, well, not only that, but not every consumer has the time to drive to the Flint Hills. Say you live in Wichita or somewhere. Of course, they burn down in that area also as well. But drive out and watch the burn. And first of all, it's beautiful. If you've never seen a burn at night in the Flint Hills, it's gorgeous. But understanding the impact what that does to the grasslands here in the state of Kansas. Continue to grow social media, I would imagine, is extremely important to you.
Very important. That's a way for us to get in front of that young millennial consumer, which is our target. That's that person that's really starting out in their career, starting out with their family, so they're kind of
starting to get some discretionary dollars.
Some discretionary dollars, so
right.
a great opportunity for us to get in front of them. But what we know is that they are a little uncomfortable sometimes with cooking beef, and so that's something that we try to help them with. And
this segment brought to you by the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. kansasAGreport.org. Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting our members' business interests to meet consumers' demands. KLA.org.
Thanks for staying with us this morning. We're joined by Ken Rahjes, who is our state legislator and gives us our legislative updates. Ken, by the time this airs, you'll be going back to work on Monday, basically, and still have a lot of things in front of you, budget, taxes, school finance.
Yeah, we had a 3-week break to come back kind of to our home districts, to talk with our constituents, talk to them kind of what they're feeling, also for us to get boots on the ground, to see how things are. And so really we've got a number of big issues. We've done a lot already this year, but obviously a school finance formula has to be taken care of. We put that in there with taxes, tax plan, and in the budget. And so anything else that might be left over, but primarily those will be the biggest things we have.
Well, let's jump in. Let's just jump in both feet. Taxes being one of the biggest issues here in the state of Kansas. I believe it was the House passed a tax increase, small tax increase. Didn't have enough votes to carry the veto from the governor. Where we stand with that?
All right, so what's happened since the first tax bill, the House did pass out a 3-tiered income tax plan that really didn't go anywhere. The Senate didn't pass it out. Or I guess they did, and the governor vetoed it, so we kind of started all over again. Since that time, the House has passed out a flat tax proposal, has not had a vote yet, but the Senate did, working with the governor. It was a 4.6% flat tax. It was soundly defeated, 3-37. And so really in the process of determining, is that the best way to go? The governor has come out and said that maybe the flat tax would be the best way to go. So it looks like, Brian, as we come to some sort of a kind of new tax plan, the LLC situation, the pass-through income tax, those type of provisions will go away. If I was to guess, I would say that something in the agreement will probably go back to that 2 to 3 tiered tax plan. I would like to see something, if we do have to do that, to put some sunsets in it, to have us continually work on it. One thing we want to make sure is we are seeing some positive signs in the Kansas economy, maybe not as quickly as many of us would like to see, but we want to make sure when this engine does take off that we don't create excess revenue, because that's not right. That should stay with the Kansas people, but also that we don't create extra programs so when the economy does slag again, all of a sudden we're scrambling, and that's not good fiscal policy.
We're not only scrambling, but we've got no additional money to fill in any gaps besides taking out of transportation. And as farmers, we know how important transportation is to the state of Kansas. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the budget and education. You're watching Kansas Ag Report, and we'll see you in just a minute.
This segment brought to you by